Hi everyone, welcome to this expert talk directly from the studios at SAP Waldorf, Germany. My name is Fernanda Rodrigues and I'm part of the Cloud ERP Product Success Enablement team. And I'm happy to be here today to host this talk about asset management, more specifically focused on phase model. I have with me today here 3 guests, and before actually I introduce them, I want to hear from my colleague Gerhard Welker from SAP. Gerhard, why is it so important that we have an expert talk to go deep into the phase model today?
Hello Fernanda, thanks for the invitation today. Yes, when we launched the phase model with the new scope items, this might be now 3 years ago, there was really great interest in this topic. First we launched it in the public cloud deployment type. The first questions were, when will we have it also in on-premise environment? And yes, 1 year later, so maybe also 2 years ago, we launched or made the phase model also available for the on-premise deployment types. And there's already, as mentioned, really great interest in this topic. And many questions were there from the customers about how the phase model they can reach, how customers and partners should be aware of the benefits and how easy it is to implement the phase model.
Mm-hmm. That's why we are here today. And to talk about phase model, I believe nothing is better than having here Andreas Joisten, who is the responsible product owner of the phase model. Thanks for joining us, Andreas.
Hi, and many thanks for hosting this talk today.
Thanks, Andreas. And of course, Andreas will bring us the SAP perspective. And online, we have with us today Yves Eichmann from EWZ, an energy supplier in Switzerland, who will bring us the customer's perspective. Welcome, Yves. Thanks for joining us today. Please introduce yourself and also talk a bit about EWZ.
Hello, my name is Eichmann Yves. I'm responsible for SAP Finance, HR and Logistics in EWZ. We've started our S4 project 2 years ago, and we are live with our S4 2022 system for 3 weeks. We have a keep core clean strategy for enterprise asset management.
Thanks a lot, Yves. Before we move actually to the phase model now, I think it's important we clarify our audience about the scope item, as Gerhard mentioned before. Andreas, a phase model always relates to a scope item. Can you explain what a scope item is and what are the advantages from the development perspective?
Yes. So for me, as a product owner, scope items are very important. Each scope item defines an end-to-end business process covering all of the business roles, their applications, and even the configuration. A scope item describes a role and each of the scenario that is used to implement a new Fiori application, which means each Fiori application belongs to one or several scope items. From a quality perspective, scope items are also important because they are the baseline for our automated testing strategy. And looking into the future, scope items drives the roadmap planning because we do want to extend our current solution, which are based on scope items. Now, after explaining the main important reason why scope items are very important, I would like to ask you to join this journey and use the scope items. And for that reason, I want to show you a video how you can gain the information about the scope items, and therefore you are using the SAP Signavio Process Navigator and open the scope items. Each scope item has 2 artifacts. Here it has a flow diagram, and each of the columns show the relevant business roles and the main activities. And the second artifact is a testing script. It is very detailed. It covers all of the business role, some master data, and an overview of the main activities, and each activity is also described in a very detail. We also provide very detailed content in our SAP help documentation, and one of the innovation of the reactive maintenance process was the phase model, and here I would like to highlight one document that is an overview of the scope item that is shown here, covering all of the phases. And finally, SAP provides a SAP training including the scope item as well, which you can see now. Now, after you gain the information of the scope item and the phase model, you want to get started. And for that reason, we are providing the SAP Cloud Appliance Library. In the olden days, we have used the IDOS system that was used for training and demonstration purposes, but now in the cloud-based solution, you need a provider such as Microsoft Azure, and then you use those templates in order to deploy your own sandbox system. And this sandbox system includes all the relevant scope items and is ready to use. And here on the SAP Help side, you can see some details about the SAP Cloud Appliance Library.
So Andreas brought us the SAP perspective. Now we want to hear the customer perspective. Yves, which scope items have you introduced at EWZ, and what do you think about this concept?
EWZ introduced the following scope items on SAP S/4HANA 2022 Feature Pack Stack 0. The reactive maintenance process for HH, the proactive maintenance process for HI, and finally the emergency maintenance process BH2. Following a standard process, a scope item can be activated in a call sandbox system, enabling a subject matter expert to follow a detailed testing script and learn an end-to-end business process very efficiently. Our expectation is that those scope items are further extended and introducing a new solution are done with minimum effort. Our project is live since November, and we hope that it was the future-proof investment for a continuously evolving solution. After the next 2 years, we want to upgrade our subsystem yearly to benefit from the new solution regularly. We at EWZ cannot imagine that we could execute a yearly upgrade for our sub-solution and train all our employees at the same time without following the standard scope items.
Yves, this is very interesting that you have already introduced reactive, proactive and emergency maintenance processes. I'm quite impressed about your objective to upgrade your solution on a yearly basis. Most of our current customers following much larger release cycles.
Agree, Gerhard. Very interesting to understand the customer's perspective that Yves brought to us. As now the concept of scope items is clear for us, let's move then to our main topic of today, the phase model. So Andreas, please explain us a bit about this innovation and how phase model works.
Yes. You have seen this process flow in the previous video recording describing the end-to-end business process of the reactive maintenance order. We have divided this process into 9 phases. Each phase is associated with one business role, and each phase covers one main activity that we describe via a subphase in the phase model. Some phases have multiple main activities, and in order to distinguish those activities, we have introduced several subphases. Those phases and subphases have been introduced across different applications, such as this overview page. All overview pages follow a certain pattern. First of all, you have to set a global filter, and we are using the reference planning bucket. I am responsible for certain notification and maintenance orders, and therefore I define my reference planning bucket using fields such as planning plant, planner group, or main work center. But I can use also some other scoping parameters. And my operation planning bucket should cover one week. When I took this screenshot, the current week was calendar week 37, and based on the global filter, I wanted to see 2 buckets that are in the past and 2 buckets that are in the future. For each bucket, a separate bar chart is generated, and the orders and notifications within that week are grouped by their phases. Now I can use the color coding, and I can see that in the calendar week 36, there is a light blue section which refers to the screening phase. There's one notification that has been submitted, but it is stuck in the screening phase, so there's no decision taken either to accept this notification or to actually reject this notification. So I have to look into that. On the next slide, I show two screenshots showing two different applications, but both applications refer to the same list of maintenance order, but the information about the maintenance order is shown completely different. In the list report, I have shown the column system status, and over several decades, some end users reported to SAP that they really struggle to understand those system status. Those are too technical for those end users. They struggle to conclude what is the current process step for those orders if they see certain active system status. And we address this challenge by introducing the phase model, because the phase model is a simple translation from the system status to the corresponding subphase, and each subphase belongs to one phase. And I would like to highlight a second benefit of using the overview page. Those cards are not just used for getting an overview. Those charts are also interactive. If I click into one section of this chart, I trigger a navigation launching a target application. Which target application is launched depends on the phase that I selected. Each target application has been designed to fulfill a certain purpose, offering certain functions and features. If I launch this application, only those orders or notifications are listed that are selected by the section that I determined. And then I can use the functions and features provided in the target application to actually process those orders and notifications.
Thank you, Andreas, for this explanation of the phases or phase model. I really like how you explained it and these slides. I would wish when I tried when I rolled out it first, I had this slide where you showed the complex system statuses comparing to the phases now, which gives really transparency in this process. Well done. This brings me to a next question to Yves. If SAP delivered best practices content in the past, most experienced maintenance planners do know the order type PM01 and the underlying business process. In the past, customers adjusted the standard business process leading to their own definition of business process. Those customers introduced their own user statuses to represent individual steps of their end-to-end process. Now the question to you, Yves, in your legacy system, have you also introduced a user status profile for that purpose, and how was the adoption of new process in your company?
Yes, we also used the user status profile for that purpose in ECC. We introduced the standard phase model without removing any phases, subphases, or introducing any additional phases, subphases. As reported by our end user, the user experience of the phase model is much better compared to the user status profile based on the solution in ECC.
Oh, nice to hear. Great feedback. Thanks for this. What was the challenge of introducing the phase model? Some customizing has been most likely done at EWZ. I hardly know any customer using the out-of-the-box solution.
The guidance from our management was clear. We want to transform our business, and the new software should enable this transformation. People management is a key for the success of transformation, and statements such as "we have always done it that way" have been suppressed straight away. The reactive maintenance process is initiated by submitting a maintenance request, and 3 different channels are offered at EWZ, enabling everyone triggering this process. SAP Fiori application create maintenance request, the mobile solution SAP Service and Asset Manager, SAP BTP based on mobile start. SAP already provides configuration to using the approval phase for a reactive maintenance order and suppressing this phase for the proactive maintenance process. We are using control keys on operation to indicate that certain operations have to pass a security-related approval during the execution phase. Here, a phase control code is blocking the transition into subphase work in execution, and in this transition is only enabled if the corresponding approval is issued via workflow. Hence, those operations are shown in Fiori perform maintenance job, but the technician cannot trigger the start of this operation that would lead the subphase work in execution. At EWZ, the checklist solution has been introduced so that the evaluation of work related to an operation is formalized and clearly documented. If the work execution of all main operations have been completed, so the existing has open main work checkbox has been cleared, a custom workflow triggered the activation of the system status main work complete. In standard SAP process, this system status would only be manually triggered by a maintenance planner. During the post-execution phase, a quality gate is introduced via workflow, and this workflow is triggered if the checklist solution documents an issue that requires an additional manual evaluation. The receiver of this workflow item is the person who has accepted the initial notification during the screening phase. In the happy path, checklist solution shows all green. The triggering of technical completion is even automated to prevent manual interaction of a maintenance planner.
I was looking forward for this detailed explanation. Many thanks, Yves. Based on my understanding, you are using the checklist solution and the resource scheduling capabilities to formalize the planning, scheduling, and execution of the work. Finally, you partially automate the processing of the maintenance order, which relieves to the maintenance planner.
And Yves also indicated that there was no need for major adjustments related to the phase model itself. Andreas, are there any capabilities only available for phase model enable maintenance orders?
Yes, there are some. And one I would like to highlight, it is related to the new system status main work completed, and that is relevant for the proactive maintenance process. First of all, you have to create a task list as you can see on this slide. You have to classify your operation using the field execution stage with pre-main pose. The actual maintenance work is captured in the main operation. A pre-operation might be building the scaffolding, and the post-operation might be the dismantling of the scaffolding. In the second step, I have created a new maintenance plan, and I would like to highlight this checkbox completion required, which means the next call object, in my case an order, will be only generated if the previous order has been completed. Now I schedule this maintenance plan, and in the olden days, working with those orders that are not phase model enabled, you had to technically complete those orders, and then the maintenance planner determined the reference date, and the reference date populated this field completion date. And once the maintenance plan was scheduled again, the next order could be generated. Looking at this order, you can see that the pre and the main operations have been completed because the subphase shows work finished. But the third operation has not been completed, which means I, as a maintenance planner, cannot trigger the technical completion. But this order has been set to main work completed because the asset that was under maintenance is now ready to be handed over to the operational team. And when I trigger main work complete, I also determine the reference date. And now, when the maintenance plan is scheduled again, this reference date will populate the completion date, and with the next scheduling, the next order is generated.
And hearing from Yves about the customization they have done in the company, can you explain the SAP offering regarding extensibility?
Yes, for us, clean core is very important, and therefore we want to enable customers to follow that clean core approach. We are providing business events. For example, when the maintenance order header subphase has been updated, then a new business event is raised. Other business events are raised when the phase control code are activated or deactivated. We also provide a body so that customers can introduce their own logic, reading the order details, and then decide whether or not a phase control code should be activated or should be deactivated. We also offer an API for the creation of an order, updating of those orders, and processing those orders. And finally, we have released certain CDS views that can be used as well.
And now the question for Yves, in order to introduce your customized solution at EWZ, have you done any modification, or was the provided API sufficient?
You have a clean core strategy. There is no modification. The API was sufficient.
Very interesting. Now, Andreas, I'm interested in knowing what is coming next for the phase model. Is there something in the roadmap that you could share with us already?
Yes. So the phase model was introduced via a co-innovation program with the oil and gas industry. And this industry has to follow certain regulations, and some of which are actually reflected in our phase model. Now, our Chief Product Owner, Boris Moore, kicked off a new strategic customer innovation program focusing on other customers so that we cover other industries. Yves with EWZ is part of this program, and other companies as well, such as companies coming from the discrete manufacturers. And those companies have the challenge that some of them have many plants that work differently. So they are not able to roll out one unified business process, and we want to simplify our phase model and make it more flexible so that those plants can work with one order type, but they will roll out different phases according to their business needs. So some plants might use the current solution with the 9 phases, and other plants will have less phases.
If you might want to use this opportunity, raising an enhancement request to Andreas as a product owner of the phase model.
EWZ is also engaged in this strategic customer interaction program, and Andreas shared the upcoming enhancements that are already in development or will be worked on soon. In this round, I have already proposed specific sub-phases related to the integration of the checklist solution.
Yes, and I am in contact with one of the product manager working on the checklist solution, and I'm aware of the high interest of customers using this solution, and we will have an internal workshop related to checklist solution using the phase model.
Great, thanks for this valuable information, Gerhard. Now, as we are part of the enablement team, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the customer. So how should a subject matter expert approach the phase model, in your opinion?
Thanks for this question, Fernanda. I think Andreas explained it well in the beginning of our expert talk. First, attend the training course covering the phase model. This is a well done training course. Please look in it. And second one is, I learned this right now from Andreas. So we have this offering at SAP for the SAP Cloud Appliance Library. For those guys who are for a long time aware or going with SAP, you know the old IDIS, so the Internet Demonstration and Evaluation System to enable customers learning, demo environment and so on. Now we have, as mentioned, or Andreas explained it, the SAP Cloud Appliance Library. You have the content there. You have set your tenant. You can directly start with your application, try it out. Third, really important, also mentioned by Andreas, is the great SAP help documentation. I really like it. Andreas showed it right now in the expert talk, that for each phase there is really in detail explained how this phase is working and what is the transition to the next phase. And last but not least, we started this expert talk with end-to-end processes, the so-called scope items at SAP. Follow the instructions in the delivered test script to learn the basics of the end-to-end process. Andreas showed this us in this short video in the beginning. And I think, Fernanda, at the end you will manage that our audience will find this information in the description of this expert talk, right?
Exactly. You can find all the related links in the description below. I want to also ask from Yves, do you have any more suggestions?
As a speaker of the Swiss SAP user group for maintenance management, I strongly recommend participating in a SAP user group. The German-speaking user group hosts a monthly online session for maintenance management. Very interesting topics are presented and discussed in this round. Finally, we are benefiting from the very close relationship of the German-speaking user group with SAP, so that members of a German-speaking user group, including myself, have attended a testing event hosted by a SAP development team located in Munich. The phase model was one topic that was covered during this event.
Thanks a lot for your suggestions. I think it's time to summarize what we have learned here together in this video today. I would say we have some key messages. First of all, using SAP Cloud Appliance Library and the provided documentation, as said, a submatter expert learns the phase model easily, that it's possible to do. Over the years, of course, the end users have struggled to understand this technical system status of a business object since a maintenance order, but phases and subphases are much more descriptive, as we saw from the examples from Andreas today. So they have been introduced in several applications to increase the user experience overall. And following scope items and clean core, AWZ is planning the yearly upgrade to leverage from SAP innovations more frequently. I would like to thank you so much, Gerhard, Andreas, Yves, for joining us today on this expert talk. I hope the audience had a chance to learn so much as I did today on this video, on this expert talk. If you like this video, give us a like, give us a comment, share this video with people who might like it. If you have any suggestion or any topics you would like us to discuss next, feel free to drop us an email via insightS4@sap.com. I'm curious to see your feedback also there, and don't miss the chance to visit our SAP community and ask your questions directly to SAP experts. I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.